Welcome back to Your New Day. Amid recent acts of terror committed by ISIS and other Islamic extremist groups, the White House has reached out to Muslim Americans. President Obama met with community leaders to discuss issues ranging from discrimination to the importance of countering terror groups who commit heinous acts in the name of Islam. Joining us, two of the people who were at that very meeting. Dean Obadiah is right here in our studio with us, a political comedian and, of course, a Daily Beast contributor. Farhana Khera is the executive director of Muslim Advocates. She joins us from D.C. Good morning to the both of you. Dean, I'll ask you first, significant meeting, first of its kind, I understand, and it sounds as though it was a long time in coming. How did it come about, and were you surprised that you were invited?
I was surprised I was invited. I was elated I was invited. I think Farhana can tell you much more about what led up to it. She spearheaded the effort with Muslim Advocates, but it's been an effort for years. And don't get me wrong, there are Muslim Americans who have an ongoing relationship with the administration. They're called in to discuss issues. But with leaders around the country sitting around a table, it was exciting. I was ecstatic. I was trying to think of a way how to steal the White House silverware because it looked so cool. I hate to bring it up. I was really like, if I go back, a plate's coming back with me.
Farhana, we know there were some rules to this meeting. You cannot quote the president directly, but can you tell us what subjects you touched on?
Yeah, absolutely. And let me first say, Michaela, that this meeting could not come at a better time. You know, at a time in our country when, unfortunately, there are some public officials from the state houses to Congress questioning the loyalty of a group of Americans simply because they're Muslim. I really commend the president for taking the time to sit down and hear directly from American Muslims about our hopes and dreams for our country. And something I shared with the president was that the most common concern I hear from Muslim mothers and fathers across this country is their concern that their children will grow up being ashamed to be Muslim. And it was probably encapsulated in a Valentine's Day card I actually shared with the president. It was written by two young sisters, Sonia and Sabrina, 8 and 10 years old in California. And they basically shared their hopes and dreams and, frankly, their fears. Sabrina, in particular, the oldest sister, talked about how she dreams of one day becoming an engineer or a basketball player. And yet she's also concerned that people are going to be mean to her simply because she's Muslim. And she's asking the president to do something.
You know, Dean, it is not an unusual immigrant experience in this country to be judged by your worst stereotypes. You know, I mean, you're dealing with it on both sides of your family now. Part of you is Muslim, the other part is Christian, Italian,
yes.
You know, and they had their own path through this country.
Sure.
And that's why this being so secretive, like you can't say this, you can't say that, in a way, does that feed the phobia a little bit?
I think these are the ground rules that my sense the White House has for meetings with other organizations as well. After the meeting, they said, you know, anyone who wants to say what they said, they can say it. But it was a meeting to start a conversation with the president, frankly. So we want to build relationships. And I think that, you know, each of us expressed what was our concerns. And if people out there think that we don't hate these Muslim terrorists more than they do, they don't get it, because these people are killing people in the name of our faith, and we suffer the backlash. So that was a big part of it. And for me, I talked about the political avenue, about what's going on. You have Republicans, from Bobby Jindal a couple of weeks ago to a state representative in Oklahoma saying Muslim Americans are a cancer, should be cut out of America,
right.
And that we need the Democrats to give us more than silence. We need them to stand up for us the same way a Republican elected official made a racist, anti-Semitic, or homophobic comment. They're silent when it comes to us. So we just want fair field. And that was my big point to the president. Each of us had our own points.
Well, and that brings up an interesting thing that we have even struggled with here at CNN on New Day is the language and labels and titles. Farhana, did you guys bring that up? Was that addressed in the conversation about how to label whether you call them extremists, whether you call them terrorists, whether you call extremist Islamists? Was that discussed, the challenge?
So at Muslim Advocates, we've encouraged the White House to not play in to the frame that's being promoted by ISIS. ISIS wants this to be a religious war, to be a war against Islam. It feeds their recruitment if they do so. And so we've actually supported the White House, and it's not just this administration, it's actually even the Bush administration that has not used the term Islamic terrorism, has not used the term jihadi.
I mean, so I'm sorry, what term are you comfortable with?
Yeah, so I think we just call it violence. Or if we're talking about ISIS, we're talking about Al Qaeda. You know, the enemy is ISIS. The enemy is Al Qaeda, and that's what we have to call it.
They're terrorists. That's it. I mean, people say, well, how can you fight an enemy you can't define? I can define them. They're called terrorists. They're called Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Now let's go defeat them. Let's stop playing games about words. Let's go save lives by defeating the enemy. We know where they are. We know what they're about.
It's not that easy, though, because what you want out of a meeting like this is you want it to extend into our cultural recognition. What you're dealing with most profoundly in the United States is a fear of the unknown with Islam. And when you hide from the fact that these people call themselves Islamic, these terrorists, it seems like you're trying to cover for Islam. And that's the problem the administration's having.
Well, I'm saying just quickly, they're Muslims, and calling them Muslim terrorists is actually accurate if you want to say that. Islam indicates that somehow what they're doing is connected to the faith or sanctioned by the faith. Just because someone has Allah Akbar after doing something doesn't mean it's based on the faith. But we hear people on the right saying that all the time. That's the simplest, almost idiotic approach. Look at what they're really doing. They're about power. They kill Muslims 12, 13 a day, according to the report by Iraq Body Count.
Dean, Farhana, we hope that we can have further discussions with you both. This was a great first step of the White House, obviously. So glad you could come and share your experience with us.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks for having us.